Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to go down a rabbit hole because I think that this story has pretty much run its course at this point, so I think cross-examining it now is probably... I think it's pertinent because I don't think much more is going to come of it, and that is the whole Ray Fisher saga that's been going on. I did a video on the first tweet and kind of what I thought about that, so I'll skim over that because there's been other stuff that's happened since then. And it's kind of just examining some of the validity of it and maybe some of the motivations behind it, because I don't necessarily think it doesn't seem to be all just him going after Whedon. I feel like this might be a bit more of a publicity thing at this point. And so why don't we'll just go into it. So at first, Ray Fisher sent out this tweet that basically said he retracted a statement that he had that he supported Joss Whedon coming in to finish Zack Snyder's vision, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, and he was confident in him and the studio that the movie would be good. He said, "I fully retract this." Actually, I don't know if that's the exact verbatim, but I forcefully retract this statement is actually what he wrote in the tweet. Now, this started a whole cavalcade of stuff. And keep in mind, this is immediately after the Snyder Cut came out. Or not came out, but was announced that it was going to be coming out on HBO Max. Actually, I shouldn't say immediately, but this was, I don't know, maybe like a week or two later, I think, at most, that this started happening. Now, it's important to kind of examine this if you're going to look at it from a separate angle with Ray Fisher, because here's the thing, he hasn't had a whole lot of work since Justice League. He was in True Detective Season 3 for HBO. He was a reoccurring character for 8 episodes. I should say main character, sort of, yes, no. I haven't actually seen the season, so I can't judge the season on my own, but looking at the aggregate numbers for, the ratings, basically, the first season of True Detective had not lowish ratings. They were pretty good, especially for the show. It spiked up by the end of it, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you almost had 4 million people watching the last show, which is twice the people that watched the first episode. So that's the sign of a good show, when you have a building audience by the end of the show where people are coming in to watch this. Now, the second season had much higher ratings. It was not as well received by fans and by critics, but it had higher ratings. It never dropped below 2 million. Even when it got into the middle, I think the closest it got was like 2.36 million for viewers. Now you go to Season 3, which is a considerable gap away from Season 2. Season 2 is 2015, Season 3 is 2019. Now, none of those episodes even cracked 2 million. And there was an episode in the middle that actually only had about 880,000. So that was a significant drop-off in ratings. Now, the other weird thing that I found about True Detective, which I'm kind of going off on a tangent on this, but just bear with me, it doesn't have any audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, none of the 3 seasons, so I couldn't gauge what audiences actually thought of the show, because there isn't a tomato score, other than just, gauging user reviews and stuff like that, which, I didn't feel like diving into that whole mess, because the video isn't really about that. But it is kind of strange, but critics did give it a positive score. But regardless, the view numbers were down for that season. So you're in a television show that kind of had a little bit of a dip in popularity, and that's basically it outside of now the Snyder Cut, which he's going to get credited for, which he's not technically acting in again. It's still his first performance unless they do reshoots. But obviously he's still being credited. So that's his most recent credit. And then before that, you're looking at Justice League and the cameo appearance in Batman v Superman and then some other small stuff. He hasn't done a whole lot since Justice League. And I think that's partially because Hollywood kind of, I don't want to say turned on Zack Snyder, but basically, when Ray Fisher was coming in to do Justice League, he was an unknown. Nobody knew who this guy was. You had him in a couple of shorts, and you had him mixed in a little bit here and there with some other stuff, but nothing that you could, readily point out. It wasn't like a AAA production or anything like that for a film or a television show. So then you go into Justice League. He's one of the mainstay characters. I actually really liked him. He was probably one of the better parts of that movie for me. Him and Jason Momoa's Aquaman was at least funny. But he comes in, and then he has this role, but the film is a flop. The film sucks. The film gets ripped apart. And then you have all the stuff with the Snyder Cut. Now, the people who were in Justice League, a lot of the other actors had careers and they had other stuff. You have Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, who have obviously, Ben Affleck has moved on to other things and he's established his fame in Hollywood already. Henry Cavill, who is a veteran actor, he's coming back to the Superman role in some capacity, although I'm not sure how. And then he also went and did The Witcher. He's doing a Sherlock Holmes series for Netflix. Gal Gadot, who has the Wonder Woman franchise that's continuing to succeed, and it has the sequel coming out at some point in the future. So she has stuff. The only other one was kind of Ezra Miller, but he's still tied up in everything because they still want to do the Flash movie. So, and then of course Jason Momoa, who was already a big actor when they cast him. So everybody else, it kind of, for one reason or another, has kind of a lifeline, except for Ray Fisher. They were supposed to have that Cyborg solo movie that was going to come out, but it basically got nixed as soon as Justice League came out and flopped. They said, okay, we're just gonna burn this whole thing. And since that was really his only on-screen role, because I don't really count the cameo in Batman v Superman as much. So that role was really all he was known for. So now you have an actor who is literally only known for one movie, and it was a superhero flop. So that's not good on your career. That blacklists you for a bit. I think he's been blacklisted for a little bit, just because of the massive failure of that film, and I think also because he was. It seems like he was very close with Snyder in terms of the vision and just the way that they work with each other and stuff. They seem very friendly with each other, like they go out drinking after the shoot or something like that. And creatively, it seems like they're very much in tune, because they both like each other's creative. Well, Ray Fisher likes Zack Snyder's creative vision for the character, and he has input and stuff like that, and he liked that. So I understand being loyal to a director and more or less somebody that you consider to be a friend of some sort, or at least, a very good colleague. And I understand that, and I think that connection may be what screwed him, because basically Warner Brothers kind of just washed their hands of Zack Snyder in a very cavalier and kind of rushed fashion. Because now we're going to kind of go into the other stuff with Ray Fisher, because I think that the fact that he may have been blacklisted because of Justice League is a possibility, and that possibility may lead to why these things are coming out. But let's go on to the rest of the story, because that's really where things start to happen. Because Joss Whedon still, actually to this day, has not issued a statement on any of the things that Ray Fisher has said. The only person that has come out in defense of Whedon is Alan Tudyk, who was Wash on Firefly, and he basically says that it's not in Whedon's nature, and yada yada yada, and your basic kind of defense, which I find kind of weird, because I think his brother is Jed or Jeb. I think it's Jed Whedon. No, not Jed Whedon. I can't remember who Joss Whedon's brother is, but his brother, who is also in Hollywood, I don't think I heard anything about him coming out in defense of him. And that's kind of weird when your own brother doesn't come in and do something, because I believe he also co-wrote a lot of his movies with him, including the pilot for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think he might have done some writing on Avengers as well. So that's kind of weird not to hear anything about that, but we're hearing from Alan Tudyk, so, okay. So after, the no response, then we get a little bit of clarification from Fisher. So Fisher stated that Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Berg, and he throws a couple of other people under the bus too. Now, Jeff Johns was he was supposed to be kind of the Kevin Feige of the DCEU. That's really what Warner Brothers wanted. But he couldn't handle the workload. He couldn't balance out the creative visions of the various films, and he couldn't get them done to a point where they would be satisfying in the way that or satisfying from a monetary perspective to the studio. Because after Justice League, he was then transferred. I believe he's chief creative officer at Warner Brothers under the DC label. I think that's what his new job title is. I don't remember exactly, but he was basically moved out of the Kevin Feige role. So I guess he's fair game to take a pot shot at, because Warner Brothers already doesn't like him, or has kind of taken things away from him and kind of just pushed him off in a corner. And then John Berg, who's a producer on the film. No, I'm not sure exactly, John. I haven't looked too much into John Berg. I'm more familiar with Jeff Johns, because he was kind of the bigger figure in this, and again, he's a big comics guy too. So John Berg was also doing this, according to Fisher. Now, the only examples of Whedon's actual treatment of the cast and crew is stuff that we're getting second, actually technically third hand, from Kevin Smith. Um, and this is even weirder. So Kevin Smith was on the set of Rise of Skywalker before it came out. He was given an advanced look for whatever reason. And basically, when he was on that set, he ran into people who had worked, special effects people who had worked on both versions of Solo, apparently, and also both versions of Justice League. So I guess they used, those people had overlaps in the crew, I guess. So basically how they described it is that Whedon was basically dismissive or critical or just plain didn't like the way that Zack Snyder wanted to originally do the film, and he would basically just berate Snyder in front of the people who had helped Snyder make the original cut of the film, which is the cut we'll be getting next year from HBO Max. So the Kevin Smith gives a reasoning for this that I buy from his perspective if he believes it, but I personally don't necessarily believe it. And the version is that it's very unprofessional because, basically Whedon was coming in to, because Zack Snyder had the tragedy in his family of his daughter committing suicide at the time, and he came in to finish the film because Zack and his wife went to go grieve. Now, I believe that is not true. I believe what they wanted to finish the film because there was stuff that was coming out around the time that both Zack Snyder and his wife, who I believe was the editor of the film, were claiming that they wanted to continue working on the film in the memory of their daughter. At the time, again, I might be corrected on that if there's counter information, but the point is I think that Snyder was released because they saw his version of the film and they didn't think it would do well in theaters. So they wanted to try and salvage the project. They hired Whedon on because they knew that he had done team-up movies before with Avengers 1 and 2. And then they bring him in and they say, okay, make this movie more like Avengers and make it watchable for general audiences. Basically make us an MCU film, which makes no sense when you're going from an aesthetic like Batman v Superman into Avengers. That the two tones do not match. That's what I think happened, and then Warner Brothers basically just kicked Snyder and his wife out and said, "No, you're not going to continue doing anything here. We're going to hire on Whedon because we have no faith in you." I think that was more the situation. I think that's why there was such an outcry from the community of Snyder fans to get his cut out. Because it's perceived that even though he probably can't talk about it again because of NDAs, that the studio got rid of him because they didn't like what he was doing with the movie, when, again, they hired him and they knew what they were getting when they hired him. So that's more the studio's fault than anything else. But basically, Smith explains that he thinks it's unprofessional because of that reason. I still think it's unprofessional regardless of what reason the director was replaced, whether it was, given the connection of the director to the crew and the crew that had just worked very hard on a almost 3-hour film, because that's basically what the Snyder Cut's going to be. Going up and saying all of your work sucks to people that just did it is not really a good idea if you're coming in to kind of be the boss to these people. That's a horrible idea. And it doesn't really surprise me because Whedon seems like a kind of a little weasel. But now we have come to the end of this whole fiasco, and that is that Ray Fisher has stated on Twitter that he cannot get specific about the incidents involving Whedon because of the non-disclosure agreement that is still in effect. So apparently, the NDA is still in effect for the film, but he's allowed to say certain things as long as he's not too specific about it. Now, like I said, the only specifics we really got was Kevin Smith, and even that wasn't terribly specific about what happened. I'd be curious to see if there's anybody from the cast or the crew that's going to try anonymously submitting things, which again, that kind of raises the validity of it because of the anonymity angle on the internet. Anybody could have just said it. But this whole thing feels like it's one of two things, or maybe a combination of two things. The media was bored, and this got picked up because it was something they could carry on from the Whedon #MeToo thing, and they could start bringing that up again. And it's a slow news cycle, especially for entertainment news because of the whole coronavirus. So picking something like this up, I kind of get, because I'm seeing stories in the news every day that are like, why is this a thing? Like, who thought this was an idea, for a good article or a good video? That kind of comes into this. Although, to be fair, you could probably say that about this video too. But looking at the whole body of work here, everything that's come out, the statements from Smith about the people that he talked to on set, Ray Fisher's tweets, Whedon's absolutely no response, and really nobody coming to his defense either. And putting all this together, I feel like this was a can of worms that Ray Fisher opened because his career is in a bit of a rut. And that's not to say he's a bad actor. That's not to say that what he's saying isn't true. But I think that you may see ulterior motives behind it, because he really, like I said, other than True Detective Season 3, he hasn't really had much steady work. Again, 2017, he has Justice League. 2018, he has nothing. And then, well, I shouldn't say that. He was probably filming True Detective in 2018. And then it comes out in 2019, early 2019. He has nothing in 2019, and now the only thing he has coming out in the future that we can see is the Snyder Cut, which means that he's still not getting at least consistent work. So I can see maybe drumming up some attention for yourself to further your career a little bit, even if that is just kind of an ulterior thing on the side of this, and maybe he just wanted to say this for a very long time, and he finally got the green light to do so. So there's a lot going into it, but I think that it's a combination of things. I think that I think there's two motives to this, with the angle that it's drumming up publicity for him, because obviously he's been in entertainment news for the last 3 weeks because of this whole thing, and it's kind of been almost like a tease, kind of, because obviously even when he posted the first tweet, he realized that he wasn't going to be able to elaborate on it very much, and it was going to have to come from third-party sources that may or may not be telling the entirety of the truth. So he knew he wasn't going to be able to get everything out there immediately, at least initially, and he was kind of going to be baiting people. So like I said, it seems like there's a little bit of that angle, but I can't dismiss that maybe these things did happen because Joss Whedon's kind of a douchebag. So I don't know. That's just my dissection of it. And kind of going over this whole like random tangent that just happens to pop up. But I want to know what you think. Do you think this is just a publicity thing? Do you think this is just him airing out some old grievances? Do you think that this is a combination of the two? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?